Good afternoon. This is your Pan-African show called Afrieቃ with your host Qetselawork Seifu. I would like to first say this month being African American History Month, it starts in February. I was blessed to meet a young lady who a mutual friend, Zochi, introduced us. Zochi is the young master actually I had interviewed a while back. I would like to say welcome to our studio.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. First and foremost, I have to say welcome to Ethiopia. Was this your first time?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So we have to start from that.
We have to start from there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So before you tell us about Ethiopia, actually, if you could introduce yourself and tell us who you are and how you ended up on this side of the world.
My name is Ashara Ekundayo. I live in the United States. I'm an independent curator, cultural worker, consultant, and sometimes maker. I like to make things from time to time. I spend most of my time kind of in a state of dreaming and processing and supporting, both myself and my community. I came to be in Ethiopia this time. So I travel, I take myself on trips for my birthday, actually, to places I've never been.
Beautiful.
And about maybe 14 years ago, I was working for the U.S. Department of State Bureau of Cultural Affairs with a project called Bold Food that worked with urban and peri-urban farmers in the United States, in Kenya and Uganda. And on my first journey to Kenya, I had a layover in the airport in Adash.
Ah.
And it was like an hour, just an hour long. And I spent the entire time sobbing, just with beauty, just with the beauty. I was so struck by the vibration of just being on the land in the airport. And I remembered that I said, I need to hurry up and go find at that time, an internet cafe in the airport. And I just got on Facebook and I put Ethiopia. I have to come back. And so this has been, on my mind for these 14 years. How am I going to get back to Ethiopia? So I chose to come for my birthday. So
Beautiful.
that's why I'm
Happy
here.
birthday.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
you're an Aquarian.
I am very much an Aquarian.
Well, it's a pleasure meeting
yes.
another Aquarian.
I see you.
Exactly. So before I dive into, because you have such a diverse and interesting background, and not only background, but what you do. The first question I want to dive into before our serious questions
Okay.
is what water is to you and also to the rest of humanity. What is water? Why is it so important?
I think it's such a delightful question to start with when we have two water bearers sitting here as Aquarians. The bearer of the water, the pourer of water, in the various kinds of lifetimes and ways in which I've come to understand myself as, this being on this planet. This is planet water. We call it planet Earth, but it's actually planet water. And I'm also a mother. I have two adult children, two sons. And, we talk about the fact that we all understand this element. It's an element of this planet, and that everything on this planet actually needs water to survive. And that we actually breathe through water in the belly of our mother. That we are birthed with water, and that our body is made up, the majority of it is made up of water. So across, all kinds of traditions and people's stories and the ways that we all understand that water is life. And at the very least, when someone comes to visit you, if you could offer them just a glass of water, like you might not have anything else, but let me give you some water, so that we are able to help each other quench that thirst, and just to pour into each other, just the idea of pouring life into each other and being able to support each other from the overflow. Often as creatives, as artists, definitely as mothers, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel to try to take care of everyone, often before ourselves. But the reality of how we can and should tend to each other is that we give from the overflow. And so the understanding of, in so many spiritual, religious traditions, the offering of water, the pouring of libation, the pouring of ghee, this liquid cycle that, is catalytic for this understanding of how we're going to be together. So, I mean, I guess that's my planet water, I don't know, definition, explanation
that's lovely.
for you today. Yeah.
That's lovely. What inspired you to delve into the intersection of arts, community, government, and social innovation spaces?
You know, the government, social, I don't know about, you know, that just kind of came to be as things come to be, I think. I had the gift of being raised by two parents who are artists. One, my father is actually still alive. He's 83. He still paints every day. He's an oil painter. My mother, who's, my revered ancestor, was not a direct, she didn't make things as an artist. She wouldn't have called herself an artist, but definitely a creative and someone who raised my sister, and me to be open to the idea that creativity is a tool for liberation. And so there was never any conversation that said you can't be an artist. And lots of people get that, you don't have to be an engineer, you don't have to be a doctor, you can actually be whatever you'd like to be. And so that my curiosity and the flexibility that I was raised with has, I think, allowed me to have a lot of different lifetimes of inquiry, and the other piece around it is that I've been blessed to have some really amazing mentors, mostly African American women and mostly academics. So I think there was a time where I thought I'd become an academic as well, but I can only stand so much theory because I really, I really am an action kind of person. And, once you have the opportunity to like try things out and fail and the world doesn't fall apart because you failed, and then you try things out and you win and it succeeds and the world doesn't fall apart because you won, you learn not to take much of it personal. You just kind of move forward with like, okay, these are things that can happen. The integration of community just has to do with being a person who understood that we actually are interconnected and interdependent of one another, that we, even in our practices of spirituality or even religion, nobody gets free alone.
Right.
Nobody. So you got to have somebody who's there with you, witnessing you, where two or more agree, praying with you, singing with you, dancing with you. So there was no way that I ever thought that this independent idea of I'm going to do this by myself. It's no, you're not. You can't actually do anything by yourself.
Absolutely.
So my curiosity again, just, okay, so I had an academic life and thought that might be one way to be. But, at a certain point, we realize that we all show up as the creative, that we're born as the creative. I would, the word artist is tainted, but I'm saying we all come out singing before we talk and dancing before we walk.
That's what we chose
We
to
do that anyway.
Life.
That's what humans do. And I believe that, and I know and have witnessed in my children and my friends and other children, if you give them an implement to be creative, they'll try it. They'll do it. So that, the various jobs have come and gone. At this point, I'm unemployable. So I appreciate being able to have designed a life where I get to work for myself.
Since we are beginning the month of February, and we are in Ethiopia, and just to give you like a little bug, I'm also a radio host, which I've been doing for the last 16 years. So
I love radio.
Exactly.
It's my favorite.
Thank you.
Favorite. I love radio.
And since I've done it for so long, it's a Pan-African radio show, so it's infotainment, so it's all African music. So usually in the month of February, the whole month of February, I try to play African-American music. So in that, I would get listeners that would make, comments. So I had one comment that said, why are we listening to non-Africans? Why aren't we listening to African music? So which basically told me that this person did not think the Africans living in America or anywhere else, outside of Africa that is, are not African. So the reason why I'm asking you, or I'm telling you this, is because I would like you, as an African American or a Black American, sitting right next to me in Ethiopia, I would like you to explain when somebody says that to you, because I'm sure you know what I said, but I would like you to say it in a way where people that don't think you are from Africa understand that you were taken from here. It might have been a very long time ago, but you are part of us. You are us, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So I would like my people to understand that too.
Well, I start with I am an African woman.
Thank you.
I am an African woman. And my ancestors were taken. And so the African diaspora is everywhere. It's always an honor for me to come and touch the land anywhere on this continent, that I've been. But I find that I don't have the experience of having continental Africans say, you aren't an African woman or you aren't African. I don't have that experience. What I have come to understand is that those of us who are Black Americans or African Americans, or, there's all these different terms. I mean, African American is, I think, a more mundane definition because people are still afraid of being Black. I'm not afraid of being Black.
Right.
I love being Black. And I love all of the political connotations that go with it. But what I have found is that we are a particular tribe. The African Americans, we are a tribe. And when you travel to Brazil or Central America or South America or Southeast Asia, Blackness is Blackness is Blackness.
Right.
Yesterday, I had the gift of going to church, first time going to Orthodox church. And, you see this, there are many Ethiopian people, immigrants in the United States. So being able to have access to Ethiopian food and sometimes being able to go to a party, but not often. I've never been able to go to church before. So I'm pulling this experience of like being at church yesterday, actually, and so much of it being familiar. And so the two young women that I was with, they were trying to explain to me what was happening and the process of, the priest is going to do this and then we're going to do this and then the priest is going to do this and I said, we call that call and response. And I said, in the whites and the circle and the water, I said, this is all Black church. Right. It's Black church on the planet wherever you go. It very much looks like Hinduism. It looks like Condomble. It looks like Vodun in Haiti. It definitely looks like the Black church. And they were like, really? I said, yeah. So we are African people. This is how we worship. So that's, as an example of not really having a lot of pushback around it, but knowing that so much that we love about American culture is actually Black American culture. That is actually what is being exported by the United States to the rest of the world. The way that Black Americans talk, hip hop music, jazz music, those are inventions of African American cultural dynamics that are definitely fueled by and rooted in the traditions on the continent of Africa. So to say, we're listening to Black American or African American music, you have to know that is that's rooted, on the continent and the earth and the stories. We're the same.
Exactly.
We're the same.
We are the same.
It was like, do I not come to, Ethiopia and hear Tupac or Beyonce? Yeah, I do. Mm-hmm. So it would make sense that you would also sometimes hear John Coltrane, perhaps, or, Jill Scott or Erykah Badu, because those people also come and travel to the continent. So we are exchanging, I think, one of the art forms, but probably the main art form that has no border, which is music. Yeah.
Can you elaborate on how mindfulness and permaculture principles play a role in your multidimensional international projects, AE Creative Consulting Partners. But I should have actually asked you about your creative before I dove into the question that you do with the...
Okay.
So you can actually answer them both together.
Let me try to put it together in somewhat kind of way that makes sense. So I have a consulting company called AE Creative Consulting Partners. I work with other consultants on projects related to art practice and artists and the production of art inside of real estate development, inside of civic engagement, inside of community organizing work. So sometimes that's with like city entities or state, regional entities. So hence the consulting aspect of it. But there isn't a way in which I've separated the ideology or really the constructs, these human constructs called permaculture, which are really indigenous ways from different parts of the world that we kind of mimic, I think, and copy from the natural world and integrate those principles, those learnings and lessons into the way in which we behave now. Water is a good example. Water goes everywhere. So how do we capture it? How do we gather it? How do we recycle it? How do we heal with it? And how do you take these ideas of what water does naturally for us into your business model, perhaps? So if there's some consulting dynamic or there's an inquiry or a problem that I have a client is trying to solve, I might look to the natural world to try to understand, or at least to try to explain to them what I'm seeing, if there is an assessment happening. So if you look up permaculture, it's a series of principles that are very much connected to how the natural world, how the earth regenerates and keeps itself in balance. And one of the concepts that actually my favorite one is called the edge. And the edge is where you see two maybe seemingly desperate situations that meet in the middle, and that middle place is where there's this magic that happens. An example of that is where the ocean meets the shore. If you go to the beach, where the sand and the water meet, all of these beautiful things are lined up for you to take, right? Exactly. The seashells, the shiny, shiny rocks, the crab, the starfish, all of those things are right there in the edge. This is the ocean, this is the earth, here's the edge. So how do I take that idea, that principle, and help my client understand that they're probably right up against the solution here? And that if we allow ourselves to be curious enough to pick up, what's in that edge, perhaps there's some way forward, whether it be a win or a victory or a new partner, a new ideology, an innovation of some sort that allows them to get to the next place. So that's that incorporation of that. Being also a spiritual person who has a lot of different ideas and has had a lot of different opportunities to take different roads up the mountain as we are often invited to do, that I don't separate my spiritual practice from my professional practice. And I also am really interested in working with other people who have, a spiritual path or a practice that allows them to either be more robust in how they think about their work, whether that be a meditation practice or mindfulness as it became known, more popular, I think, in the business world, that all of a sudden these corporate heads were sitting for 20 minutes and meditating. Oh, okay. That's good. Calm yourself. Drink some water. Yeah. Calm yourself before you make a decision, and see if you can feel your heartbeat and pay attention to your breath before you say something that might cause harm, to this community that you're working with or your employees, perhaps. Take a moment and just calm yourself. So those are some of the ways in which I integrate, all of those things into my work.
Into one, huh? So site responsive ceremony. What is site responsive? What does site responsive mean?
Site means that particular place. It's something
That's
happening.
literally
the site. S-I-T-E, site. S-I-T,
okay.
in that site, in that place, on that corner.
Okay.
Say, in the United States, we have the unfortunate dynamic of a lot of state-sanctioned violence being executed by the police.
Okay.
It's not a safe thing. You know, if the police pull you over, it's not a safe thing. So sometimes people are harmed, you know, on the side of the road. And say that side of the road becomes a site of mourning. Okay. We've seen that, right? So you've seen someone be hurt or killed in front of a store, and someone in the community, probably their family, creates an altar. That is a site responsive ceremony. Okay. It's like,
so now I can get into the question.
Okay.
Can you elaborate on the significance of site-responsive ceremony in your work and how you utilize various artistic strategies like photography, screen printing, etc., to illuminate the expertise of Black women of African diaspora?
I'm an African woman, and I
Thank
love
God.
that. And I love being an African woman. I love being a woman, and you know, so often in societies that are patriarchal in nature. The United States is a very patriarchal country. And the work of women can be ignored, has been ignored, has been diminished, the importance of it. So I'm particularly interested in the labor and the creative expertise of Black women. And I say of the African diaspora because because I live in the diaspora. And the way in which that shows up creatively is that sometimes, you know, my exhibition design is that I want to feature the work of Black women, the way in which we think, the way in which we create and heal. We know that in many cultures, it is the women and the mothers who transmit the culture, who teach the songs, who teach the children. You know, if there's not a mama, a grandmama, an auntie, a sister around, there's probably a lack somewhere that's missing. And so that work is valuable work. And I want to know the way in which women make films versus the way that men make films.
Right.
Really, just the way in which we tell the story.
Right.
You know, and the story is often mimics nature in that it is cyclical, that it is a spiral, that it has some roundness to it, that beauty is often the primary energy of it. It might not be a story that is a kind story. It might be a very wretched story around tragedy, but the way in which women directors and producers and editors create film has a very different dynamic and politic than the way in which men do. Yeah, straight up.
Yeah, I mean, and everything that we do actually is very different.
So that has been my focus. And I have to always credit my mother with, you know, again, raising me to be a little girl being told every day that I was beautiful, that I was brilliant, that I was strong, and that I was capable. Right. And she told me that in addition to, because I am a dark-skinned Black person. My sister is lighter skinned. My father is lighter skinned. And in the United States, colorism is very real.
Everywhere, actually, unfortunately, even on the continent.
I've experienced it on the continent many times over the many years that I've traveled here. But I'm just saying she was very conscientious about it. And so I have a tendency to like lean towards darker skinned Black women as well, because again, our voices get muted and our opinions don't get listened to. And whether or not, you know, we acknowledge each other, you know, in my heart and in my space, if I see another Black woman, I'm going to say hello. I'm going to speak to her. Right. She might not speak back.
That doesn't matter.
And that doesn't matter. And that doesn't matter, you know, and that doesn't matter. I've had, you know, a week now of being stared down, up and down. And I often stare back, and I always smile to the women. And sometimes they smile back. And that's okay too. It's like but the point is that I see you.
Exactly.
I was witnessed as a little girl. I witness us as a woman, and I want, you know, it to be okay for us to like see each other. Yeah. You know, that's all. Like I see you. I see you sitting here in the studio, and like, I want to interview you. I love interviewing people, so I want to interview you.
Isn't that interesting that I got you first?
You got me first. I was like, wait a minute.
How did your experiences in Denver, particularly co-founding the Grow House, is that how you say it? And founding the Pan-African Arts Society shape your approach to art, community engagement, and social impact?